You're walking on the treadmill, feeling good, feeling productive, and then someone steps onto the machine next to you. They're moving faster, their arms are pumping harder, their stride is longer, their breathing is louder, and without even realizing it, something shifts inside you. A quiet voice whispers, "Speed up, work harder, more intensity means more results." You increase your pace, your heart rate jumps, you feel the burn, you feel like you're finally doing something serious. But here's the question nobody asks in that moment. What if speeding up is actually working against your goal? What if the very thing you think is helping you lose belly fat is quietly pulling your body out of the zone where fat burning actually happens? That idea sounds almost too strange to believe, but once you understand what's happening inside your body at different speeds, you'll never think about walking the same way again. Most of us grew up believing that exercise works on a simple rule. The harder you push, the more fat you burn. Sweat more, breathe harder, feel more exhausted, and you'll get better results. It's been drilled into us by gym culture, fitness influencers, and the general idea that discomfort equals progress. So when someone says that slow walking might actually burn more belly fat than fast walking, the brain resists it. It feels like a trick. It feels too easy. But exercise physiologists, the scientists who study exactly how the body uses fuel during movement, have been quietly uncovering something that challenges everything we assume about intensity. They found that your body doesn't choose what to burn based on how hard you're trying. It chooses based on what the current speed and oxygen supply allows it to do most efficiently. And that changes the entire conversation about fat loss. Here's how to picture it. Imagine your body has a fuel selection system running in the background every time you move. This system is constantly evaluating how fast you're going, how much oxygen is available, and how urgently energy is needed. Based on those factors, it makes a decision: burn fat or burn carbohydrates. Fat is slow to process. It requires plenty of oxygen to break down, but it produces a tremendous amount of energy over time. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, burn fast. They don't need as much oxygen, and they can be converted into usable energy almost instantly. When you walk at a calm, steady pace, oxygen supply comfortably meets demand. Your body looks at the situation and says, "We have time, we have oxygen, let's use fat." But when you push faster, when your heart starts pounding and your breathing sharpens, the body gets a very different message. It says, "We need energy fast, switch to carbs." That switch is the moment belly fat reduction quietly stalls. The research on this is more specific than most people realize. Fat oxidation, the technical term for how your body burns fat as fuel, doesn't increase steadily as you walk faster. It actually follows a curve. It rises as intensity increases from a very low level, reaches a peak somewhere in the moderate, brisk but comfortable range, and then declines as pace climbs further. Scientists have a name for this peak point. They call it fat max. And for most people, fat max doesn't happen during a breathless power walk or a jog. It happens at a pace that feels almost too easy, steady, rhythmic, sustainable. The kind of walk where you could hold a full conversation without gasping. That pace, the one your ego dismisses as not serious enough, is often the exact intensity where your body is burning the highest proportion of fat. You've been leaving that zone behind in the pursuit of looking like you're working harder. Now, let's zoom in on what actually happens inside your body during the first 10 minutes of a walk, because the timeline reveals something fascinating. The moment you start moving, your nervous system responds. Blood flow increases, your heart pumps harder, the inner walls of your blood vessels sense the change and release a compound called nitric oxide, which helps them relax and widen. This happens whether you're walking slowly or quickly, but the stress level your system experiences is completely different depending on your pace. During a slow walk, your heart rate rises gently. The calming branch of your nervous system stays partially active. Your body enters what feels like a smooth, efficient state. calm enough to use fat, active enough to demand energy. During a fast walk, especially one approaching breathlessness, your stress hormones begin climbing more aggressively. Your nervous system shifts into performance mode. And that shift, as small as it sounds, begins to change what fuel your muscles are reaching for. By the time you hit the 3 to 5 minute mark of a fast walk, the difference between slow and fast becomes even more visible through your breathing. During a slow walk, your breath is steady and controlled. Oxygen is being delivered comfortably to your muscles, and because there's no shortage, your mitochondria, those tiny energy factories inside each cell, can take their time and process fatty acids efficiently. Fat burning is happening in a sustained, organized way. During a fast walk, breathing deepens and quickens. The body starts sensing that demand is outpacing supply. It begins pulling more heavily from carbohydrate stores because those burn faster and require less oxygen per unit of energy. By the 10-minute mark of a fast walk, you may be burning significantly more calories overall, but the proportion of those calories coming from fat has dropped. The total number looks impressive. The internal reality tells a different story. There's a hormonal dimension to this that makes the story even more important, especially for anyone dealing with belly fat specifically. Visceral fat, the deep abdominal fat that wraps around your organs and shows up as a soft belly, is not just about calories. It's directly connected to a hormone called cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone. When you exercise at higher intensities consistently and without enough recovery, cortisol levels can creep upward over time. In small doses, cortisol is helpful. It mobilizes fuel and gets you ready for action. But when it stays chronically elevated, it sends a very specific message to your body: store fat around the abdomen. It's a survival mechanism that made sense in our evolutionary past, but in a modern body trying to lose belly fat, it works directly against your goals. Slow walking produces a much milder stress response. It keeps cortisol controlled, and that hormonal calm creates a better internal environment for fat to be released rather than stored. Insulin plays an equally powerful role, and this is where the timing of your walk becomes as important as the pace itself. When you eat a meal, blood glucose rises and your body releases insulin to manage it. Insulin's job is to move glucose into cells, but it's also one of the strongest fat storage signals in the body. When insulin stays elevated for a prolonged period, your fat cells receive a clear message: hold on to what you have and store more. Now imagine taking a slow, easy walk within 20 to 30 minutes after eating. Your muscles begin contracting gently and pulling glucose into cells on their own, without needing large amounts of insulin to do it. Blood sugar rises more slowly, peaks lower, and returns to baseline faster. The window of elevated insulin shortens, and a shorter insulin window means less time spent in fat storage mode. This is one of the most underused tools in metabolic health, and it requires nothing more than a gentle walk after your meals. The timing of your walk throughout the day matters more than most people appreciate. In the morning, cortisol naturally rises as part of your body's waking cycle. A slow, steady walk in morning light does something remarkable. It helps stabilize that cortisol curve and signals to your internal clock that the day has begun. This sets up better fat metabolism for the entire day that follows. Launching into an intense workout first thing in the morning can spike stress hormones even further, which isn't always ideal for someone whose primary concern is abdominal fat reduction. In the evening, a gentle walk before bed has its own advantage. It lowers sympathetic nervous system activation and improves the calming response in your body, making it easier to fall into deep, restorative sleep. And sleep, often ignored in fat loss conversations, directly influences insulin sensitivity and hunger hormone regulation. Slow walking supports all of that. Fast walking late at night can do the opposite. Something interesting begins to happen after several weeks of consistent, moderate walking. Your body starts to adapt in ways that go far deeper than weight on a scale. Resting heart rate begins to drop, which is a sign that your heart is becoming more efficient. Blood pressure often stabilizes. Heart rate variability, a marker of how well your nervous system balances between stress and recovery, tends to improve with moderate sustained activity more reliably than it does with frequent high-intensity sessions. These aren't just numbers on a medical chart. They reflect a body that is genuinely shifting toward better metabolic function. When your nervous system becomes more balanced, when your stress response becomes more measured, the entire hormonal environment around fat burning improves. Your mitochondria increase in number and efficiency. The enzymes responsible for breaking down fatty acids become more active. You become literally better at burning fat from the inside. One of the most eye-opening findings in exercise science is what happens specifically in people who already struggle with insulin resistance or metabolic inflexibility, conditions that are extremely common in people carrying excess belly fat. These individuals, when they push into higher intensity exercise, shift to carbohydrate burning almost immediately. Their systems are not yet efficient enough at using fat for fuel under pressure. But at lower intensities, they actually oxidize a meaningful proportion of fat. For these people especially, slow and steady walking isn't the easy option. It's the most metabolically intelligent option available. Pushing harder doesn't unlock better fat burning. It skips right past the zone where fat burning could occur and forces the body into carbohydrate dependence. Starting slower, building the base, and training the body to become metabolically flexible over time, that's the sequence that creates lasting results. This also connects to something that rarely gets discussed around intensity: the relationship between how you feel after exercise and how your body behaves for the rest of the day. When you finish a slow walk, your appetite tends to be controlled. Your energy feels steady. Your mood is stable. The mild physiological response from moderate movement doesn't send aggressive hunger signals or create the kind of fatigue that pushes you toward high-calorie foods as recovery. But after a hard, breathless session, your body has depleted glycogen stores, elevated stress hormones, and triggered hunger mechanisms that can drive you to eat more than you burned. This is not a character flaw, it's biology. And when you add up the calories consumed in that post-workout hunger window against what was burned, the math often isn't as favorable as people assume. Slow walking sidesteps this entire cycle. Over several months, the cumulative effect of consistent moderate walking reshapes the body in ways that feel almost quiet at first and then suddenly unmistakable. Waist circumference begins to decrease, not dramatically overnight, but steadily, as visceral fat responds to improved insulin sensitivity and lower chronic stress levels. Energy stabilizes throughout the day because blood sugar is being managed more gently and consistently. Cravings diminish because the hormonal system is no longer constantly reacting to spikes and crashes. Sleep deepens. Mental clarity improves. Lab markers, things like fasting insulin, triglycerides, and inflammatory indicators begin moving in the right direction. The body is reorganizing itself around the signal you've been consistently giving it. And that signal wasn't intensity. It was consistency, sustainability, and metabolic calm. Here is the part that genuinely changes perspective for most people. The question was never really, how fast should I walk? The real question is, what does my metabolism need in order to prioritize fat as fuel? And the answer to that question is oxygen, steady demand, hormonal stability, and time. Slow walking delivers all four simultaneously. It keeps oxygen available so fat can be processed. It creates consistent energy demand without triggering an emergency response. It keeps cortisol and insulin controlled so fat storage signals are minimized. And it's sustainable enough that you actually keep doing it, day after day, week after week, building a cumulative effect that no single intense session can replicate. Speed has its place. Intensity has its benefits. But if the goal is specifically reducing belly fat, especially the stubborn, hormonal, stress-influenced kind, then slower, smarter, and more strategic walking may be the most powerful tool you haven't been fully using. So the next time you step onto that treadmill and someone blazes past you with heavy arms and pounding feet, let them go. You're not falling behind. You're operating in the zone your body actually needs. You're in the place where fat gets chosen as fuel, where hormones stay balanced, where mitochondria work steadily and efficiently, and where the kind of internal change that actually transforms a body can quietly, powerfully take place. The race isn't the point. The zone is, and you're already in it.